Hello, good afternoon. You're tuned into Closing Trades on ET Now. I'm Anisha Jain. With me is Avant Dubash, and the screen is looking quite pretty this Friday afternoon because the market seems to be ending on a high note for the week. 17,625 is where we are at. We started out with a gap up opening, and since then we have been just building on gains. In fact, all the sectors are actually trading in the green, so a very broad-based recovery which is quite visible, and even the advanced decline ratio is quite solid as 3:1. The Bank Nifty is actually doing the heavy lifting today. I was just tracking the outperformance there. Bank Nifty is up around 2.5% versus the frontline index, which is still showing a solid gain of around 1.75%. Having said that, in terms of the other internals, it's Reliance Industries, HDFC Bank, SBI as well as ICICI Bank, which is adding almost 120 points on the upside for the Nifty. And also the fact that there has been buying by a marquee name done in the Adani Group is something which has propelled the PSU banks higher. So we are seeing quite a bit of recovery in names like SBI, Bank of Baroda, etc. as well. Metals are also shining in trade, not only Adani Enterprises from that pack, but other steel names are also reacting positively to the news flow that there has been a price hike when it comes to the HRC prices in India. Separately, it is rupee, which is also strengthened materially. In fact, almost a 1% move coming in on an intraday basis. It's now sitting at 1 month high, sub the 82 mark. So a sharp move coming in on rupee as well, while the dollar index has continued to be around that 104.5 to 105 range. It's a truncated week ahead, so a bit of a breather coming in. We'll get a day off on account of the festival of Holi, but separately you have a lot of data, macro data, especially from China and US to track in the coming week. So lots lined up, but not much to complain, at least this Friday afternoon.
Absolutely not. I mean, just take a look at that screen, and it is reflecting quite a bit of optimism this Friday afternoon. And the broader markets too and firm fettle very minor or very minute in terms of the stocks that are really losing out. And let's take you through then some of the newsmakers as well in today's trading session. There's Angel One, that's actually a buzz in trade, and that's largely on the back of the company reporting the fact that their overall year-on-year client base has grown about 52%. On a month-on-month basis, 3.4%. The number of orders has seen healthy growth, and you've got that coming in higher by about 18% on a year-on-year basis for the month of February. Meantime, of course, the entire Adani group of stocks is seeing quite a comeback in trade today as GQG Partners, as we highlighted earlier. It's a 7-year-old investment boutique firm, and they've driven block deals of 15,000 worth crores backing for Adani group stocks, and that sent them all spiraling higher in trade. Meantime, you've also got Shree Cements. Goldman Sachs has downgraded the stock to sell. They've got a target price at about 23,550, saying that valuations here are looking quite rich, and they believe that EBITDA growth will align with some of the larger peers. In fact, this is coming on the back of Citi's report as well on the cement sector, where they yesterday said they prefer Ultratech to Shree Cement. And in the Jefferies model portfolio, you've got Godrej Properties that has made its way an addition, while Godrej Consumer from the same group has been removed from the model portfolio. All right, let's connect with our charters then. Kunal Bothra and Naresh Mirani joining in as always. And clearly the markets are feeling that Friday fever. I think, Kunal, we're up a solid 300 points.
I think picture perfect. You couldn't have asked for more support from global cues yesterday. Today, the news flow started off to be extremely positive. Slew of short covering, comeback from large cap names. I think it's a perfect script for the markets where the Nifty's managed to even cross back about the 17,500 mark on the spot and even cross about the 17,600. The comeback in the Bank Nifty, the PSU banking stocks, large cap banking names, the likes of ICICI Bank, etc., making a comeback is also quite noteworthy. And of course, not to forget the contribution from the likes of Reliance Industries. So all of that data point signals that this is a very strong short covering move. And my sense is that the move which had come back into the indices 2 days back, when there was a strong uptake, we've managed to not just engulf those candlestick patterns, but we've managed to go beyond that as well. So this is an indication of a strong bottom in place for the indices, and I think this is the time now for traders to start moving on from trading strategies short term to now trending strategies.
So you said this is largely short covering, Kunal, but any indication that tells you that there could be long position additions, etc., also at least opening up?
So maybe at the end of the day, the data would probably throw us more light on that. But you know, short covering with such magnitude is always a healthy sign, and it reinstates that the markets have formed a near-term bottom. Then once the confidence brews in, by that I mean some sort of data points or events which comes out positive, So, for example, if there's no negative from the US markets or the other global markets, then it could trickle into more long positions built up for the stocks, large caps as well as mid caps.
Okay, spoiled for choice actually if you talk about the gainers, but I just wanted to highlight a few apart from Adani Enterprises, which is higher by 15%. Want to pull up Adani Ports because that's up 10%. Let's pull up some of these intraday charts as well because there's a solid momentum build up on a lot of these counters. Indigo Paints, which has been completely out of action. In fact, it was getting thrashed quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, has suddenly seen a surge of 13%. And look at the chart of macro tech developers. Remember yesterday, this time around, we were talking about a 20% surge on the counter. Look at it today again. There's a solid move of around 7 to 8% on that name again. JSW Energy has been fairly volatile. The brokerages have been calling it a rich and fairly priced, but the market is still expecting some upside because that too is sitting with a gain of 7%. PSU banking names is something that we have highlighted. So let's move on to Policy Bazaar. That's high by 5.5%. Vedanta is seeing a solid gain of 5.4%. So a lot of these names are actually doing quite well, and I think I forgot mentioning Finolex Cables because that stock too is high by around 8%, and that comes on a bit of a heavy lifting that we've already seen from the counter. In fact, Finolex Cables is sitting at all-time high level now. Ditto is the case with Equitas Small Finance Bank at 75 bucks. It's sitting at record high level, and Jindal Stainless too is doing quite a bit of move today. So a lot of stocks to choose and pick from. But Naresh, your sense as far as the market is concerned and the strength that you're seeing in the Bank Nifty today, does it open up many more names in the banking index that you would want to bet on?
Absolutely. So, say the initial target price for the Nifty was 17,600. The Bank Nifty was 41,000. We've taken it out in a single day. So that's a very strong indication. And a lot of stocks have started taking leadership. So we are seeing ICICI Bank give a breakout move. SBI give a momentum move. So SBI and ICICI should be back in the radar in terms of outperformance. HDFC Bank has seen a little bit of a spike. So all the constituents are doing well today. So it's not just a one or two stock move on the index. So overall, Bank Nifty could again slowly and steadily scale back towards 42,000 levels. Dip to 40,800 to 41,000 going forward should be a buying opportunity. Same is the case in the Nifty. 17,500 now should act as a support for the near term. And more importantly, we should start seeing more stock-specific price action in the broader markets. So time to, like Kunal said, time to look out for trending moves and breakouts.
Okay, Naresh, thank you so much for giving us that sense on the market. Neeraj Devan also joining us to talk to us about the fundamentals of the market. Neeraj, hi, thank you so much for making time and speaking with us. Adani Group of stocks, how should one view after this GQG buying into these counters, cement names plus the flagship companies?
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, definitely such a big renowned fund putting in money definitely gives some confidence to the other investors. I think that is what is visible on the screen today, the way the Adani Group stocks are doing well. And even before the news came in last evening, I think last couple of days also was good for Adani Group. I think because of some road shows which they've been doing and, presenting their stock to investors. So I think some confidence has come back. But then what we need to look forward is that what companies valuation-wise make sense to hold on to or buy at these levels, and what is the kind of corporate governance that we see from the group. What kind of announcement that they come about the utilization of the money that the promoters have got. So all those things now will be very closely watched. So corporate governance has to be top class going ahead from these levels. They have to communicate a lot on what their strategy is, what they are doing with the debt, how they're going to pay the debts and how they're going to, utilize the money. And plus, valuation-wise, you will want to stay with the stocks where valuation comfort is also there. So I think though that bottom fare, that falling fare is over, and I think the future strategy should be based on all these parameters.
Okay, indeed, that entire cluster of stocks are all abuzz in today's trading section. In the meantime, let's also highlight some of the other movers. You've got Bank of India, as we flagged off, that stock is pretty active. Something like an SBI as well is doing its bit. So, Neeraj, within the entire PSU banking lot, are you seeing these moves as, an incremental upside, or do you believe that they're just flash in the pan moves in trade?
Yeah, I think they can be incremental upside as far as PSU banks are concerned. The PSU banks were doing very well before this news came about Adani Group, and the stocks got battered. But if you see the last couple of quarter results have been very good. Their credit growth has been very good, close to 20% And then the larger ones, the top 4-5 names, have been putting a good control over the asset quality. So they're sitting with good capital adequacy ratios. NIMs have been maintained. So I think all those should reflect going ahead also. I think this current quarter also, to my sense, should turn out to be decent quarter for these banks. So I think looking at all that, most of the banks, even if you value them at 1.25, give you a decent 20-25% upside even from these levels. So I think one should hold on and can look at a further upside from PSU banks.
Okay, fair enough. Just taking a look as to what's going on within the broader universe, given that we're pretty much neck to neck with the frontliners, or yes, that degree of outperformance evident within the frontliners in today's trading session. Apart from the Adani group of stocks, there's something like gosh, it's really tough to really find stocks apart from PSU banks and Adani group of stocks. I stumped myself by saying that. But yeah, there's Vedanta maybe that's holding out. And then, of course, it's just those PSU banking stocks that are dominating the list. On the flip side, though, you've got something like a Shree Cement, Zensar, Credit Access, as well as Schaeffler India, Tech Mahindra, etc. Naresh, let's get in a view as to what your outlook is on the entire cement basket. Today's analysis was clearly giving that preference towards an Ultratech vis-a-vis a Shree Cement basis the brokerage notes. Charts?
So technically, Shree Cements continues to be the stronger one, although it can be expensive on the fundamental basis. But technically, if you look at it, the stock recently gave a breakout about 25,000 levels, went up to 27, retested 25,000, and is now setting up for a fresh move. So a clear higher top, higher bottom formation, breakout. So trend looks positive. It could slowly scale up towards 28,500 to 30,000. Ultratech is something which is on radar. The stock has been trying to make that move above 7,300 to 7,500 band. This is maybe the fourth attempt over the last 4 months. And overall what happens is 8,000, 8,300 is a major resistance, which is where it topped out in 2021-22. So risk reward is not great over there, given the move already in place. And like I've been mentioning, Ambuja Cements was the trade which was there. And now that also gets out of it, 330 to 400 already done, almost there. So for now, in cements, one could be looking out rather for stocks which have corrected a lot and making a bounce back, which is where a small cap like a Birla Corporation comes in, which has corrected almost 45% from the top. So one should be looking at more on the small cap and the mid cap cement pack instead of the large cap ones.
Okay, Naresh, so that's the take coming in as far as the entire cement pack is concerned. Time to slip into a very short break with the news that the market is at the highest point of the trading session, a solid 300-point gain on the Nifty. But one stock which is underperforming today is Tech Mahindra. Remember, there was an analyst meet today and the management talked about how there's a lot of uncertainty and they're expecting the next couple of quarters to be soft.
On high-tech, you've seen maximum impact because there have been layoffs announced by many of them, and for high-tech to get back to the same heights, it would take about 2 quarters. We will remain in that range. And as you probably saw the Deccan highlights of the previous year, we believe we will continue on that trajectory.
Thanks for staying on with us on Closing Trades. It's really the Adani Group stocks and PSU banks that are powering gains across the board, and that's the reason we're staring at 17,600 this Friday afternoon. But let's get in those closing strategies as well from our chartists. And Naresh, what's your closing trade?
So looking at a bounce back in United Spirits, the stock has corrected quite a bit and has now made a kind of a double bottom here around that 740 mark. Good recovery candle today, expecting a move towards 775 to 800 in the short term.
Right, watch out for United Spirits. Kunal, your closing call?
So I'll go to non-F&O stock. Policy Bazaar is a stock which I've been bullish on earlier. Would look to buy as well as recommend the stock to our clients.
All right, PB Fintech or Policy Bazaar, that's what Kunal is betting on. And speaking of, Neeraj, would like to get in your thoughts as well. What within New Age Tech is showing promise?
I think most of the companies, whether it's PB Fintech or Paytm, and still giving me that confidence to invest into these, even Nykaa for that matter. I think Zomato is still one which the kind of distribution network that they have, I think that's unparalleled. They have an infrastructure in space. I think Zomato I would still look at and keep as an investment, but I don't think there is anything else that's really worth putting in money or looking evaluation wise attractive to me. I think you need to see them making some profits and seeing 2-3 quarters of decent growth in profit basically. Then only you can take a call. So I'm not really a fan of these new age companies.
Still not a fan of the new age tech companies, but Naresh, are you a fan of macro tech developers now after the 2-day up move? And what about JSW Energy? Both those stocks are doing quite well for themselves today as well.
So Macrotech has been a difficult one to understand. The stock cracked out of nowhere from 950 to sub 750 levels in say a 10-day period, and now it is back above 1000 plus levels in quick time. So tough to take a call here. And the rest of the real estate stocks also are not showing a lot of strength as such. So would be a little careful in Macrotech developers as of now.
I'm guessing Godrej Properties should be doing quite well today. Remember, there was a Jefferies note this morning wherein they have added to their model portfolio. We know, of course, how Chris Wood has been positive on that one. So, yeah, Godrej Properties is also higher. Neeraj, your take on the entire real estate pack, Godrej Properties, Macrotech developers, and the other marquee names?
Actually, even when I talk about North, because that is where I'm from, if you look at DLF, the kind of, the sales that they're able to do, the recent project which came a lot in the news where they sold 1100 odd apartments in just 2-3 days. And they were each priced at 7.5 crores around. So there is on the ground, as far as the luxury or the higher end apartments are concerned, there is no slowdown as of now. I think there is some slowdown which is there in the low category one or maybe sub 50 lakhs one. But see, demand wise, there's no issue as of now. But I think as far as interest rate sensors are concerned, which of course real estate is an interest rate sensitive sector, I think one needs to wait maybe some more time, maybe get another inflation data, because we saw a last inflation data also, which was a dampener to what people are expecting as far as the interest rate movement is concerned. So I think let's see one more data. I think if you see some respite happening there, then I think real estate is due for a rally from these levels, because most of the stocks have corrected and still they are 10, 15%, 20% below the high that they saw just a few months back. So I think it's due for a rally, but the real rally will come in only once you get some data point as far as inflation is concerned, if there's some easing happening there.
Okay, what about your take, Kunal, on real estate?
So I think after today's move, I would start to be a bit more selective as well as bullish on the real estate pack. So earlier we used to just about ignore the trends over here because the trends were not sustainable for these stocks. But I think after Oberoi Realty specifically, the stock making a new swing high, DLF has not yet confirmed a new swing high, but the stock has seen some good recovery in the last 3-4 days, back about the 360 odd mark. Godrej Properties, I think second or third consecutive day where the stock has seen some good short covering move for itself. So the real estate pack is getting a bit more vibrant. Oberoi Realty is the stock which I would pick as of now, but yes, I think DLF would also be the stock which would be on the radar.
Okay, Naresh, wanted your take regarding a couple of other buzzers as well. Indigo Paints higher by 12%. Policy Bazaar, of course, we flagged out, which is higher by around 7% as well. And in fact, the entire new age tech world would be there any stock apart from Zomato that you would bet on, and Indigo Paints as well?
So Indigo Paints has seen a one-way downtake. Say the stock listed around 2700, and the stock has corrected all the way down to sub 1000 levels and now closer to almost 20 below 1000. And today we've seen a one-day take. So a one-day uptick of 10-12% is tough to call a bottom. So in this case, I would be a little careful. The stock can bounce back to 1200 levels, but it would still be a difficult trade going forward. The risk reward is not great. Policy Bazaar, on the other hand, is the more interesting one. The stock has clearly made a strong base. Now, if you look at the whole, say, consolidation, the stock has consolidated for the last 1 year and now has started to cross a 6 to 8 month high. So clear-cut trend is strong out here. So Policy Bazaar, FinTech, PB FinTech looks the interesting one. And in the new age take, watching out for stocks when they start making a formation. So something like a Paytm is, which has gone through that period. The stock was at 700 in say March, April of last year. Today also is at 650. The lows are around 450, 500 a couple of times. So that is one more which comes on the radar, wherein the consolidation has gone for a year. And once it starts making, say, a constructive move above 700, that would be an indication of fresh trend is starting.
Okay, let's move right on then. And Neeraj, get in your take on metals, because we were discussing just earlier today that perhaps the kind of underperformance that we've seen in some of those metal stocks in the year gone by would have taken one by surprise. Your take on how you've read into the trajectory for metals? Do you believe that this year is likely to be the comeback year?
Yeah, actually, it looks like I think metals, as far as demand is concerned, is picking up. So there are some, initial moves that we saw in some metal names also. In fact, if you look at, besides ferrous metal, you see a non-ferrous or the stainless steel. Stainless steel anyway has been doing so well. If you look at the only company listed which is purely in stainless steel, as a Jindal Stainless, have been doing very well, and they're still seeing that demand is very strong. I think even the other non-ferrous names, whether it's Vedanta, so aluminum stocks, zinc, I think they also look very interesting. I think metals this year should do better than what they did last year. I think demand is picking up, and if the demand continues, because China opening up is also aiding to the demand. So if that continues, I think you will see a better performance this year than what we saw last year in metals.
Were helpfully pointing out last 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, the Nifty Metal Index hasn't given a positive return, but maybe this year is likely to be different. The start of the year hasn't been so great for the Adani group of stocks, and the corollary to that was the banking names which have exposure to Adani Group. They were also coming under pressure. But now with GQG checking into Adani Group of stocks, there seems to be a bit of reversal of sentiment. In fact, Harsh, my colleague, is joining in to tell us which are the banks that have the largest exposure to Adani Groups and how their balance sheets stack up at the moment. Harsh, take it away.
Looking at a total debt of roughly 2 lakh crore which Adani has on its books, of which around 39 to 40% is from the Indian banking sector itself, and within that, so that's roughly 80,000 crore, and within that you have the PSU banks which have a slightly higher exposure. 31% out of the 40 is PSU banks, and around 8 to 9% is private banks. Now for private banks, the exposure is around 0.3% of FY24 loan book, and for PSU banks it's around 0.7%, so slightly higher than the private banks in all. But otherwise, largely this is well known, the risks were slightly lower anyway. But let's go on to some specific names. SBI has around a 27,000 crore exposure. This is funded exposure of SBI. PNB is roughly 7,000 funded plus non-funded combined, and Bob has around 5,400 crores of exposure. You're looking at Axis Bank, which has disclosed a total exposure of around 0.94% of assets of roughly 7.5 lakh crore. We're looking at IndusInd, which has around 0.85% of around that 2.8 lakh crore book, and you have IDFC First, which has 0.5% of exposure of total assets of around 1.5 lakh crore. So across the board, that's how it's looking.
Okay, that's interesting to get that bank exposure to the Adani Group of stocks. Harsh, thanks very much for joining in. Let's take a quick break, and as we do that, you had billionaire Bill Gates, who was in India, and we at the Times Network had an interaction with him. But apart from that, you had Smriti Irani interacting with Bill Gates, and let's take a look at his khichdi making skills.
Well, last 30 minutes of the trading action and of the trading week, and bulls would be not too disappointed with this week. In fact, let's pull up the weekly charts of how the Nifty has done. I think we are managing with a 1% gain by the end of the week, and Nifty Bank as well has been doing quite well this week. So let's see what kind of performance have we seen from that particular index for the week, because my guess is it would be a tad bit better than what we have seen for the frontline index. So For Nifty 50, it's a gain of around 0.8% thereabouts, and Nifty Bank is up around 3.6%, with the PSU banking clearly leading from the front. There's almost a 10% gain, which is quite visible on the PSU banking index, and the bulk of that gain is actually happening today. So if you pull up the 5-day chart, please, we'll have a look in terms of how the week has gone by. These are the charts for today, but if you look at the weekly charts of Bank Nifty, PSU banks, that will tell you that there's a 10% rally in PSU banks, and the Bank Nifty itself is up around 3%. Metals, Realty too have had a good day. But you know what, guys? There's one stock which has managed to gain as much as 50% this week itself. And I'm sorry to bring it back up again, but it's Lodha Macrotech Developers, which is up 46% in a week itself. I mean, Kunal, I'm sure traders making 46% in a week itself would be like great, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
46%. I mean, it's quite appalling to me. But anyways, there's a lot of...
But then the Adani Group stocks are not far behind in terms of their returns for the week. You know,
but you know, it's a higher risk reward play, right? They could have been down 30% for all you know.
Exactly.
But yeah, very interesting how the week has really panned out. But there are a lot of events which are lined up for the coming week as well. Important would be the weekend as well, because in China, there's an important Congress meeting. The street is expecting there might be some fiscal measures coming out of that. So that will be really interesting to watch. We can pull up the events to watch, which will be coming up for you on the screen. So there are two sessions happening of the legislature and the political advisory body, and both of those will tell you that there would be some additional fiscal measures coming in to provide stimulus to the Chinese economy. March 7th, a very happy day for us here because it's going to be a holiday for the Indian markets. It will be shut on account of Holi. March 8th is the day when Jerome Powell will be presenting his semi-annual monetary policy report as well. So the comments will be important to track. March 8th, of course, is the Women's Day, so important point coming in there as well. And in terms of other corporate action, Natco Pharma is going to consider a buyback on March 8th. There's budget of Maharashtra state coming on March 9th. So a lot of us will be tracking that very closely. And then, of course, the initial jobless claims data and the Indian industrial production data will be interesting to track. So it's going to be a busy, hectic week despite that one-day breather coming in for the Indian markets. But let's welcome on board Vineet Bulinskar as well. Vineet, hi. Thank you so much for joining us. Does it feel like that the market is out of the slumber for sure and now we are headed for 18,000 or higher levels?
So there are a couple of things which have happened. One is that GQG coming in and investing in Adani, they've beefed up the sentiment for a stock which had seen a massive rout. And traders and investors had lost a lot of money and they had to sell family silver in other sectors and stocks. But with the revival of the trend in Adani, I believe that this trend will be allergic and also add on to the other sectors. And we have seen the PSU Bank also rallying in line with the Adani stocks. And the sentiment, the fundamentals of the economy could have never been better, and that is now going to be reflected in the stocks. I don't, barring for any international events that are very disruptive, I don't think that this gravy train is going to stop moving up higher next week.
All right. Vineet, what's the outlook when it comes to the entire consumption space? Do you believe that the next quarter is likely to be a bit more promising in light of input prices cooling off, or we are likely to see inflationary concerns persist?
So the opposite kind of forces which are at play. One is the expectation that because of El Nino, the rainfall might be, precipitation might be lower than expected. But India has done enough conserve water, which can see us through about two bad monsoons. So I don't see that impacting significantly. And this year's Rabi crop is expected to be a bumper crop. So I believe that this will fuel consumption, and hence we believe that despite lower rainfalls, aggregate spends would be much higher than we have seen in the recent past.
Okay, so that's the take coming in as far as how the macro setup is looking like, especially with respect to what to expect from the crop, given that IMD has been raising the red flag that there's going to be El Nino this year, it's going to be hotter than expected. Though, of course, whether it's going to be a below normal monsoon or not is something we'll have to track, because we've been fairly lucky for 4 years on a trot with good monsoons coming in. But whether that rural recovery will continue or not will be interesting to track as well. Vineet, your take as far as the entire cement pack is concerned, because a Of course, Ambuja and ACC were under the radar because of what was happening to the entire Adani group. But other than that, Ultratech, Shree, India Cements, any other name, what would be your take on how one should approach the cement pack?
I think I will go with Birla Corp and also with Shree Cement and Ultratech. For the time being, we would not be looking at the Adani cement stocks, primarily because we believe that they are richly valued at this current levels.
Okay, Naresh, let's get in a take from you then. What's the outlook when it comes to the metal space? Are you very selective here?
So metal space as a whole looks interesting for a couple of reasons also. We've seen a good enough correction in some of them, and say some of them are closer to all-time high. So Jindal Steel looks interesting from a perspective of relative strength. Hindalco looks interesting from the fact that it has corrected 15% from the recent highs of 500, and the stock is available at the same price as it was 6 months back or almost a year back. And then you have the global metal and mining stock. So if we look at the Dow Jones Metals and Mining Index, it's coming close to a 3 to 6 month high, making a fresh breakout over there. So out here, the structure seems to be positive for the whole metal pack globally. Our Indian stocks have been an underperformer. So in this case, I would expect a bounce back in Hindalco, even in the Tata Steel, which has done nothing for a long period of time now. The stock in the recent last 1 month or so has come down from 123 odd levels to 105, 107 levels. So this could be a bounce back trade. It has corrected from 150 odd, which was the high almost a year and a half back. So a bounce back trade in some of them, and trending stocks possibly could be Jindal Steel. So overall, expecting a bounce in the whole metal pack, I would go with a basket of say Jindal Steel, Hindalco, and Tata Steel.
Vineet, what would be your recommendation to the retail investors who have missed, let's say, the PSU banking rally last year? At the current level, would it still make a good buy? Because you are, of course, today seeing a knee-jerk reaction. But from, let's say, a 1-2 year point of view, would you be a buyer for PSU banks?
Absolutely. Well, look at the differential between the private banks and the PSU banking valuations. There is definitely a case for buying PSU stocks, given the fact that their asset quality has been fully provided for. Growth is going to be very high, and the NIMs are also catching up with their richer cousins, which are the private sector banks.
Okay. Now, interesting to just map out some of the movers for the week gone by. Yes, Anisha was surprised by Macrotech. That has certainly gained about 44% or so for the week gone by. But then, as we flagged off, there's been the Adani group of stocks that has seen a stupendous comeback. A lot of it is in today's trading session that has attributed to the 1 week gain. Pull up the 1 week chart. Adani Enterprises, for instance, a 40% plus gain. You've got something like an Adani Ports, which has gained about 23%. Adani Green, another stock from that cluster of stocks. Adani Wilmar, and then there's been Adani Power that have been in the limelight for the week gone by. So those have been some of the interesting movers in this week. But on the flip side, you've also got some stocks that have had a pretty rough week. Cipla, for instance, has lost out about 9% or so. There's been emphasis from mid-cap IT that has shaved off about 5.5%. Nothing compared to the gains that we saw, 40%, but nonetheless, these have been weak. Tata Elxsi as well, Infi, something like a CG as well as KPR Mills and Alcom Labs, they've lost out about 4.5% or so for the week gone by. Interesting, Vineet, to get in your take then on mid-cap IT?
The IT entire pack, I remain very guardedly cautious, not recommending at all at these levels to look at. The reason being that internationally we are going to see a severe disruption in the currency setups. We believe that the US debt is clearly unsustainable, and the world is, in the throes of a de-dollarization trend, and that can severely dent the currency movement. So also we have seen Wipro cut salaries very, very aggressively for engineering students who were supposed to come on board. So given these cues and the slowdown in spending in the US, we believe that IT can be a sort of a disruptive trade. So we are not long this, and we are very, very cautious about it.
Some of the managements are getting a bit realistic about it. So in my conversation today with Tech Mahindra, they did highlight the next 2 quarters are clearly going to be slow. While they'll work on improving the margins, the targets that they had set earlier seem to have been pushed back a bit. Clearly on account of the delay in decision making and the entire change in the discretionary spend which we are seeing. Having said that, all of them still maintain that the medium term outlook for the industry is quite robust. Talking about what's happening across the globe as well, because the European markets are comfortably in the green. Look at the German DAX sitting with a gain of almost 0.9%. You have the French CAC up around 0.6%. FTSE 2 is up around 0.3%. The US rates for now are not too excited. The Dow is up just around the flat line. The Nasdaq future also mildly in the green, but interesting action coming in today from the currency world as well, when you saw a sharp strengthening when it comes to the Indian rupee, just around that 82 mark, almost a 1% move coming in on an intraday basis. And as we speak, I think it's sitting at a 1-month high level as far as the Indian rupee is concerned as well. But Vineet, as well as Nuresh, I want your take on capital goods. Nuresh, let me come to you first. ABB, Siemens, they had run up considerably. The defense names too had run up considerably. Is there any name that provides a good risk-reward bet at this point of time, Nuresh, from the entire defense and industrial pack?
So from the capital goods space, clearly L&T is the one which has a good risk reward out here. The stock is consolidated at 2050 to 2200, can make a fresh move towards say 2500, 2600 levels. So that is the first one which looks interesting. Then there are a bunch of small cap names related to it. So today TD Power has given a fresh breakout into a new 52-week high, which looks promising. There is a Bharat Bijli in the transformer pack, which looks interesting. From the defense pack, Bharat Electronics is one which has a good upside compared to the risk reward out here. So there are a bunch of stocks in this. I would avoid the Siemens and ABBs and start focusing more on the L&Ts, BEL, and say something on the small cap side, which is TD Power and Bharat Bijli.
Okay, so that's the take coming in on some of these industrial names. Vineet, your take as well as far as defense and industrials is concerned, because we continue hearing about these, order wins coming in for the defense names, some tie-ups, some MOUs that they keep on signing. But if you look at the quarterly earnings, they just don't show up in the numbers.
So, these tie-ups and these new orders that come, these are long-term orders which are executed over multiple years. So, it augurs well for revenue visibility, and that is what is shoring up the valuations. So eventually the numbers will come. They might come with a bit of a lag, but the numbers will definitely come. As far as the industrial pack is concerned, I second Nuresh on the fact that L&T has consolidated really, really for a very long time and is due for a vertical move emanating from any time now.
It's Friday. Let me put all of you on a spot and do some one-word answer kind of questions. Nuresh, Tata Motors or M&M?
I would still go with M&M.
Okay. What about you, Kunal, in terms of ICICI Bank versus SBI?
ICICI Bank.
Okay, interesting. Vineet, your top stock bet at the moment?
Tata Motors.
Wow, Tata Motors. Because we were looking at those charts and discussing it in the morning, that slowly and steadily Tata Motors too has given a gain of around 42% if you look at the last 18 months. Whereas at the index level, we haven't seen much. But, Vineet, what would you say in terms of the two-wheeler stocks? Is there a reason that you will start looking at, let's say, a Hero, a Bajaj? The valuations are fairly reasonable at the moment, given the fact that there are a lot of headwinds, whether with respect to the rural demand or the export challenge for Bajaj Auto. A value play, a risk-reward play?
So a value play would be Hero Honda and a risk-reward play would be Eicher Motors.
Okay, we got our rapid fire answers in, and that really put you guys in the spot for a bit. Well, just mapping out what the index looks like at the current levels, although we're skirting around the 17,600 mark, you've got support coming in from across quarters. So PSU Bank's doing their bit, you've got the metals index, real estate, and even infra. In fact, all your sectors are really putting up a good show today, and that's why you're seeing this resilience. And then, of course, Adani can't be excluded. So let's get in some BTST calls. And Kunal, what is it that you're flagging off on the charts this Friday?
So the first one is about Indian Hotels. The stock again making a very strong comeback to that 320 odd mark. So buy with a target of 340, stop loss at 310. And ICICI Bank again enters back into that list because of today's move. The stock has confirmed a breakout 50-day moving average after a period of more than weeks for ICICI Bank. So this could be a turn-off event for the stock. Buy with a target of 900, stop loss 855.
Naresh, what about you? What makes it to your BTSC list?
So first is a bounce back trade on United Spirits. The stock has corrected quite a bit and started to make a reversal signal today. A stop loss at 752 and a target price of 775. Second is a buy on IDFC First Bank, which has also retested the breakout points. A stop loss at 56 and a target price of 59.
Okay, those are the BTST calls. Really struggling to find any other, spots of green other than what we've flagged off already. On the flip side, as we've highlighted, it's Tech Mahindra, Divi's Labs, as well as Asian Paints in the red. In fact, let's get in a view then on the charts. Kunal, Asian Paints, Nestle, some of these stocks that are looking a little bit quiet today.
Yeah, but they would still be buying for these stocks. So I think Asian Paints, the last 2 or 3 days, the stock has been sideways. So when we look at the last week, or in fact this week up move, the stock has risen quite well from 2,700 to 2,830. Now, what matters is when the markets show such kind of strong up move, it's the appetite of risk which comes back into the indices, and that's why you've seen so many number of stocks, rising up 10%, 15%, even 30, 40% for a few cases. That generally happens when there is an appetite for risk which comes back again, and that overall is a healthy sign. So even if the stocks consolidate for a couple of days, but they don't see major correction, those consolidations would generally result into a breakout in this kind of a market environment.
Okay, Vineet, you were talking about how GQG buying into Adani has changed the tide for at least the near term. But if I had to ask you to make your top bets within the entire Adani group, whether ports, whether cements, etc., which are the top 2-3 stocks that you would recommend to your clients?
So my pecking order would be Adani Ports, Adani Enterprises, and Adani Transmission.
So that's a sweet and simple answer coming in for how the Adani group of stocks are stacked and where the preference lies. In fact, today there's Angel One also, which is doing quite well. We have the stock which is have around 4%. It's cooled off from the highest point, but the provisional data which has been out is quite interesting. My colleague Asesha is standing by to fill us in with the details coming in of how their monthly performance has been. Asesha, take it away.
Absolutely, Angel One is soaring in trade today after the company reported strong set of operational data for the month of February. Remember, the company has reported strong set of data across parameters in both on a quarter-on-quarter basis as well as on a year-on-year basis. Client base for the month of February grew by about 52.2% on a year-on-year basis, and on a month-on-month basis also it has seen an increase of about 3.5%. As far as number of orders are concerned, they have risen by about 18.8% on a year-on-year basis. Although on a month-on-month basis, it has seen a marginal decline of about 3%. But the another important metric is the market share, and company has reported market share gains on all segments except the cash segment. Overall equity market share grew by about 180 basis points on a year-on-year basis and about 70 basis points on a month-on-month basis. As far as the F&O market share is concerned, that has also seen an increase of about 180 basis points on a year-on-year basis. But as I mentioned, the cash segment is where the market share has seen a decline this month. Cash segment market share declined by about a marginal 60 basis points on a year-on-year basis and 30 basis points on a month-on-month basis. All in all, good set of numbers, strong operational data, market share increase is why the stock is gaining in trade today.
All right, thanks very much, Ashesha, for giving us all of those details. In the meantime, just checking in on some of the other interesting mid-cap movers for the week gone by then. Anupam Rasayan has gained quite smartly, close to a 14% gain this week. You've also got something like an Equitas Small Finance that's gained traction. Tata Tele has gained about 12% or so. There's been Alok Industries, of course, 13 rupee stock. Triveni Turbine has gained in double digits. Equitas Small Finance Bank was what I was talking about. And if we can show the 1 week chart, that's what I'm referring to. So show the 1 week chart of all of these stocks. It's been an interesting move. I'm talking about the 1 week move. Bank of Maharashtra as well has seen a double-digit gain. On the flip side, you've got a BEML that's lost out. Guys, pull up a 1 week chart of BEML maybe. Zensar Tech was talking about how mid-cap IT has been in a bit of a spot this week. BEML has lost out about 11%, Zensar Tech 7.5%, Mahindra CIE, the 1 week chart, there you go. Those are some of the stocks that have had it a bit rough. Fine Organics added to that list, and something like a VIP Industries. But I'm going to go to the gainers list then, and Kunal, and get in your view on some of these movers. Anupam Rasayan, have you had a look at the charts? Equitas Small Finance Bank, 76 rupees stock, this week has gained smartly.
Yeah, so I think I'll start off with Equitas Small Finance Bank, and many of these small finance names. So I was actually looking at the charts for Ujjivan Small Finance, Ujjivan Financial, and these stocks have done reasonably well in the last couple of weeks. So Equitas has risen from, for example, from 50 odd rupees to I think 74, 75 in just a matter of the last 3 or 4 weeks. And what matters is the volumes backing this move, and we've seen some very strong comeback of volumes into these names, and that generally goes to show that this may not just be a terminal move or an ending move for these stocks, but this may actually be a starting move for many of these smaller cap names. So I would believe that Ujjivan Small Finance, Ujjivan Financial, as well as Equitas Small Finance, I think these are stocks which a short term as well as a medium term trader could be looking at. And as I mentioned earlier, that rather than looking at more trading plays, because there is always a possibility that the stock may take a bit of a pause in between, you have to start looking out for now trending moves. So your time frame has to increase from maybe a couple of days to at least a couple of weeks, if not more.
Okay, so that's the take coming in on some of these big movers in the week gone by as well. But what about the upcoming week? Kunal, would you stick your neck out to say that we might be staring at 18,000 this time next week?
Yeah, I think it's very much possible, Anisha, because so the strength in Bank Nifty, the candlestick in Bank Nifty is very, very strong. It's on the weekly charts, it's bullish engulfing for the banking index, and that is a very rare kind of a pattern which we've seen for the banking index, at least over the last 2 or 3 months of this consistent selling for the indices. And when we typically see such kind of candlestick formations, there is always a follow-through uptick. Now, the only point of comfort which we would probably be waiting out for is that the moves which you've seen for the global markets, specifically the US markets yesterday, that should not fizzle out. If that's the case, then I think we can expect another solid next week.
Another solid next week, and on that very optimistic note, then we'll wind down the markets for trade today. We end close to the high point of the trading day, scaling up by about 1.5% for the Sensex. Ditto, it's been a solid 890-point gain that we've seen. Each day is pretty much different in terms of the markets. It's flip-flop, but today, I think no complaints. The broader markets as well see a nice gain, pretty much neck to neck with the frontliners, although it's the Nifty and the Sensex that have really taken leadership. Breadth clearly in favor of advances. Take a look at the PSU banks. They've gained nearly 6% today. Metals have done their bit. The Nifty Bank Index, our chartists were talking about pretty heavy, strong levels on the upside. Infra has gained smartly, FMCG, and all sectors go home with a gain today. To the frontliners then, and here's what stands out. Adani Enterprise is 16%, Adani Ports 9.5%. SBI has been a very commendable mover today. Bharti Airtel wraps up the day at about 760 plus. ITC is a winner. SBI Life, Reliance Industries, HDFC Twins, IndusInd Bank, Titan, L&T, ICICI Bank. So the heavyweights really packing in a punch. Tech Mahindra loses about 2%. Ultratech Cement is soft. Cipla, Divi's Labs, Cipla, so Nestle. Some of those stocks with a defensive tilt, they've had it a bit rough. Going to quickly run you through some of the newsmakers in today's trading session, and yes, indeed, the Adani group of stocks merit a mention. All of those stocks across the board actually have seen quite a comeback. Remember, the promoter selling stake, and it's been GQG Partners that has lapped up shares of 4 companies: Ports, Green, Adani Transmission, and Adani Enterprises. Angel One, they've announced their key business parameters, and that's kept the street pretty happy. You've also got some of the other stocks that are in the spotlight, like Bharat Forge, the North America Class 8 orders. They have managed to rise on a month-on-month basis. NTPC, Morgan Stanley's overweight. Shree Cement, you've got negative brokerage reports coming in for 2 straight days on the chart. Cipla has Access Capital support and ad rating on that stock. You've got HDFC Life. The management is going to nullify the impact of the budget proposals. BPCL got you an exclusive on the divestment. As of now, it's going to remain on hold. And you've also got GAIL, which is on Citi's radar. They've got a buy rating with 110 rupee target price. Within the broader markets, they're seriously very tough to point out anything other than banks and Adani group of stocks. But yeah, few and far between. A Finolex Cables, something like a JSW Energy. But otherwise, yes, the likes of Can Bank, Union Bank, UCO Bank, Bank of Maharashtra, they dominate the gainers list. And on the flip side, Some of the losers include a Future Retail, a Yes Bank, Schaeffler India, Shree Cement, Tech Mahindra, as well as Mahindra Holidays. Those are some of the stocks that lose out. Just a quick look as to how the markets have shaped up this week. We've gained just about 1% or so. 26 out of the 50 Nifty constituents have advanced this week. The Nifty Mid Cap has snapped its 2-week losing streak, and the PSU Bank has been a solid gainer, gaining over 9.5% this week. Okay, I'm out of breath and we're out of time, so we'll wind it down then on this edition of Closing Trades. Thanks, guys, for watching.